Hi, my name is Chelsea Lineback. I'm an admin here in the Happy Hippos pattern group, and I wanted to make this video today to teach you all how to make a serged straight flare cloth pad. I use the straight flare pattern to make this, and I want to teach you all how to do it too. There's a few really cool things about this pad. The first thing is that the wings sit flush with the rest of the pad. The second thing is that it's super freaking easy because you'll make the wings first. You'll go ahead and serge these corners and get them out of the way, and then you'll just pin it to the main part and serge it all together. So it's really easy to make. It's a good scrap buster because you can use those really tiny pieces of fabric you have to make these wings, and it comes out really nicely, I think. I think there's really only a few things you could do wrong with this pad, and even if those things do happen, then you still come out with a really great looking pad at the end of it. So I wanted to teach you guys how to make a pad like this. So if you want to make a pad like this using the Happy Hippos Straight Flare pattern, then go ahead and watch this video. Thanks so much. Okay, so you're going to need a couple things for this first part. You're going to need some paper. You're also going to need your straight flare pattern, whichever size you want to make, and something to trace it with. It's important to note that when you're tracing your pattern, you trace it on the sewing line and not the seam allowance line. And since we are not turning and top stitching this pad, we don't need that turning hole at the bottom, so just go ahead and take a straight edge and close up that gap. And it's important to leave a little bit of room on the other side of the paper to trace our wings. We're all about not wasting paper in the Lineback household. So I will trace my patterns on bills, anything. So just trace your wing and then take that straight edge and just continue that diagonal line, maybe quarter, half an inch, something like that, just to give us a little bit of wiggle room with our wings. And just take the straight edge and close that gap up, make a little trapezoid. And now what we're going to do is trace the natural curve of the pattern, because when we cut out this main part, we're going to be cutting it out without the wings. The wings are going to be a separate pattern piece. So just go ahead and make a little curve of your pattern right there. Don't make the curve too deep. Just try to connect those 2 points and just a slight curve. We're going to name that part A and part B. And we're going to cut that out. It's important to use 2 different pairs of scissors for paper and fabric, because you don't want to dull out your fabric scissors with your paper. And you're also going to need your core piece, of course. So I have already transferred my pattern pieces to some cardboard to make it easier, so I recommend you do that, but it's not totally 100% necessary. But the next thing we're going to do is cut out a topper and a backer piece for part A and part B. And of course we're going to cut out our core layers from our core pattern piece. So just go ahead and iron your fabric. This video doesn't show me ironing my fabric, but it's very important that you iron, and you also use a washable marker. Sharpies are not for sewing. I see a lot of people suggesting Sharpies to other people, and it's important to use a washable marker because if those markings show, we want to be able to wash them out. So just go ahead and trace part A and part B and cut them out. You obviously want to trace 2 of part B because we need 2 wings. And just cut out those wings, make sure they line up. And I had a little bit of an oopsie right here and mine didn't match up, so I remembered that there was one more line that was a little bit faint, so I went ahead and trimmed that off. And now they match up. Yay! Sorry, my 2-year-old's in the background. And we're going to take our fabric scissors and cut out part A from our topper. And so right here I'm just kind of showing you how the wings are going to fit on the pattern, and you might want to make your own little markings, line up your pattern with part A, and just kind of mark where those wings are supposed to go. That way later on it makes it a little bit easier for us to place our wings. So you can either mark those markings on your topper right now, or you can do it later. I'm going to do mine later. But now that we have our topper cut out in part A and part B, we're going to cut out our backer in part A and part B. So I'm just using some fleece here. You can back it in whatever you want. Just make sure those part A's match up. And they do. So now we're going to move on to our core. I'm using some super heavy bamboo fleece. You can use whatever you want. If you want to use flannel or terry or zorb, you just want to make sure that when you cut it out, it's not too thick. And I'm going to show you a little trick of mine here in a second to kind of reduce that core bulk. So I'm going to cut out just one layer of super heavy bamboo fleece, because I'm just going to make a heavy pad right now. And we're going to trace it all out. And we're going to cut it with our fabric scissors, of course. So I want to know in the comments section, what is your favorite core fabric to use when you're making cloth pads? I know a lot of people like super heavy bamboo fleece. Some people just like the heavy bamboo fleece. Some people swear by flannel. So what's your favorite? And again, we're using our fabric scissors because we want to have two separate pairs of scissors so we don't dull our fabric scissors by cutting paper. You want to be a part of the video too?
No, Daddy.
Oh, okay. I don't know where it is, baby.
Huh? Bob.
So here's that little trick I was talking about. I just have a little booster pattern piece that I cut out from a little bit of cardboard. Yes, honey. And it's probably 5 inches by 1.5 inches. It's just a long oval. And I'm just going to trace that out on my super heavy bamboo fleece. And cut it out, of course. And this just makes sure that I have all the good absorbing fabrics right where I want them without causing a lot of bulk where it's not needed. Of course, you can do whatever you want.
Dad.
Kool-Aid?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to pin this booster layer to my core layer. Just putting 2 pins where they need to be. Sorry, you guys, mom life never ends. I was planning on doing this this voiceover with no distractions, but I'm a mom first. So now I'm going to pin my wings. Just pin the topper layer to the backer layer. Here you go, here's your drink. Just gonna put 3 pins. One at the top of our trapezoid and 2 on the sides. So now we got our wings all pinned, and we are going to sew that booster layer to our core layer. And you can use a 3-step zigzag, or you can use a wavy stitch. I know some machines don't have that wavy stitch, and I can't imagine what you guys do without it because I love wavy stitch. So I'm going to use wavy stitch right now. And it's just important to note that the side of the fabric should always line up with the side of our presser foot. And when I put my core under my presser foot, obviously the needle is up, but I'm going to put my needle down because I'm going to take out that pin and start sewing. You just want to go slow and as steady as you're comfortable with. And when we get to a pin, we're just going to take it out. If anyone has ever sewn over a pin, you know it's not the funnest thing. And when we get to a curve, we're just going to sew a couple stitches, lift up our presser foot, rotate our work just a tiny bit, making sure that the side of our presser foot's lined up with the side of the fabric. And sew a couple more stitches, lift up our foot, rotate our work, sew a couple more, lift it up, rotate, sew a couple more. And this is how I've always done curves. I have sewn pads for probably about 3 years now, and I would say I'm a confident beginner, and that's how I always sew my curves. I find that I get more accurate curves when I slow it down. And I'm not sure what's happening with the camera here. I just got this new tripod, so I might have been working out a few kinks. So you can do curves however you want. This is just how I do mine. And you really don't even have to use a zigzag or wavy stitch. I just like to use it because I feel like it kind of reduces that bulk there at the side of the booster. You could use a straight stitch if you wanted to. I just like my wavy stitch. So now we're done. Oh, and I also forgot to tell you that the wavy stitch doesn't have a reverse. So I just kind of sew over the first few stitches, about an inch or so, just to lock in those stitches. Now we're going to trim our strings from our core, and we're going to pin the core layer to the topper layer of part A. Just putting pins where they're needed. I think I probably put about 8 pins on here. I just like to make sure it's nice and secure. I know some people like to use a glue stick or basting spray, but now we're going to sew our core layer to our topper layer, and of course I'm using the wavy stitch. So just sew as slow and steady as you're comfortable with. We're doing those curves the same way that we did them before, lifting up our foot and rotating our fabric. I'm sure some people are able to turn their work while they sew, but I've never been much good at it. So again, we're going to sew over our first couple stitches there, about an inch or so, just to make sure they're all locked in. And now we're going to serge our wings. So this is where it gets tricky. Well, not super tricky. We're just going to take out that pin, line up our fabric with the blade, but we're going to have our blade disengaged. We don't want to cut off any fabric right now because we have it exactly how we want it. So we're just going to serge that edge, and when we get to the end of that edge, we're just going to turn that dial a couple times, and you want your stopping point before you turn to be where your needle is up, but if you put your needle back down, there wouldn't be any more fabric. Does that make sense? So needle in the up position, no more fabric to sew, lift up your foot, and just turn your work so that that other edge is lined up with the blade. And that was a little bit hard to explain, but hopefully you got the idea. We're going to do that to both of the wings, obviously. And this is where I'm going to mark those 4 little markings to show me where the wings go. But if you did that earlier, then you're a step ahead of me. I'm going to take my 2 wings. I have a little darning needle right here that I use to place my snaps, and I'm just going to line up those wings and put my darning needle right where I want those snaps to go, and kind of rotate it a little bit so that they're how they would be if the pad were snapped, and just put a needle there, or a pin, to take place of a snap. I couldn't find my snap pliers when I was filming this. So pin the backer layer to the topper layer of part A, flip it over, and place your wings. So you could flip it back over and then pin it, or you can place a few pins and then flip it over and kind of readjust those pins so that they're easier to take out when we're serging. Does that make sense? We don't want the pins to be stuck in the other side because we're not going to be able to reach underneath and grab the pins out. So you could cut off this extra fabric right now, or you can just engage your blade on your serger and have your blade serge them off. I've done it both ways and I don't really find a difference, but you do it both ways and see what works better for you. So now that our wings are pinned on to our main part, we're going to go ahead and serge everything together. So make sure that those wings don't get folded up underneath your serger, because that would be bad. Make sure the wings lay flat, and when you get to a wing part, if you haven't already cut off that extra fabric, then go ahead and engage your blade and make sure you take out your pins as you get to them. And then when you're done with your wing, just disengage your blade again. When we get to a curve, we're just going to do it exactly how I showed you before, but instead of lining up our presser foot with our side of the fabric, we're going to line that edge of the fabric up against that blade. And when we get to the end of our serging, we're going to snip off that little tail in the beginning, turn our work, and just keep serging off a little tail. And that's what the finished product looks like. Yay! So I think we made a really great pad today. It was really easy to do. It came out great. The only thing that kind of bugs me about it is that the wings turned out a tiny bit crooked, but maybe I'm the only one that can see that. I can't find my snap pliers, but the way you would add snaps is to just take your two wings together, kind of, match them up like this, and just put your hole exactly where we put it before we pinned it. Just stick it on through, and then just add your snaps accordingly. So I hope you guys give this method a try. It is super easy. You come out with really great pads. This is my favorite pattern that Becky makes, the straight flare pattern. So I was thrilled to have come up with a method to serge a straight flare without wanting to throw your serger out of a window. So I hope you guys give this a try, and if you do, post pictures of it in the group. If you want to, you can like me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @LadyLineback, and I'll put that right here. Tag me if you post anything on Instagram. Tag me if you post anything on Facebook. Let me know if you want to see any more videos like this. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!